Welcome to another episode of Behind the Lava Lava. I am your host, Michael Tan, and joining me are Milford and Johnny. Today's topic is on mental health, mental illness to be specific. This problem affects everyone on a day-to-day basis, but we want to bring awareness to this subject, especially among the Polynesian community. So our question for today is, what is mental health to you? Let's start off with Johnny.
It's exactly what it is. Thanks for the opportunity. Mental health is mental health. It's just an irregularity. It's a hormone imbalance. It's an emotional feeling that gets exacerbated because you don't really, because of outside influences or internal influences or experiences or anything throughout your life. So it's one of those lucid topics that's not really, there's no right or wrong answer. There's also like a plethora of ways where it can all be incorporated. So it's not really mental health to me is exactly what it says. It is a problem in your mind.
Yeah, thank you. And just a reminder to our listeners, we are not therapists. We're not counselors. We don't have doctorate degrees. So whatever we say, just take it with a grain of salt. To me, mental health, if we're going by a dictionary definition, is a state of balance both within and with the environment. Mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being, and it affects how we think, how we feel, and how we act. So it's the ability to think, learn, and understand our own emotions and the reactions of others. So what is depression and its signs? What do you think, T?
Depression, I don't know. Clinically speaking, I don't know. All I know is mostly what's associated with it or with that word. From what I know personally, and just knowing people who expressed that they went through depression, is mainly sadness and just not feeling like doing things they used to, not feeling enjoyment or fulfillment out of anything. Basically, just stuck in the doldrums type of feeling. I mean, I've heard, chemical imbalances, hormone imbalances like Johnny was speaking on. But other than that, like when people say they're depressed or they've gone through this or that, I don't judge them one way or another. For one, I'm not a doctor. And two, I don't know how their mentality is. I don't know what environment they came from to say, hey, toughen up, you're being soft, I don't know the daily struggles a person faces or has faced. Depression, I can't give you a clear definition. If you say you've gone through it, then I guess you have. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. If you say you're feeling that way, then I'll believe you, and I'll try to help you out if you're my friend or just anybody.
For our listeners, mental health is a state, is your overall well-being. That's what mental health is. So mental health is not a bad thing, but when it comes to mental illness, that's a whole different topic. So depression is one of those mental illnesses that most of the world, we all suffer from this. So depression, to me, is when you're losing interest or excitement in doing something, like what T said, when you're getting overwhelmed easily, especially when you have unregulated sleep schedule, so you don't have a set sleeping schedule, you're always awake. You're either always awake or you keep waking up. When you're always feeling drained or exhausted every day, basically when you're struggling to find your center, that to me is depression. How about you, Johnny?
No, I want to say skeptical on the diagnosis as far as depression is concerned. I believe it to be quicksand, basically deterioration. Something bad happens to you, and then you can only focus on that aspect of the day. And it continues to, it could be not just the day or throughout the week or throughout the year, and you only focus on that and you continue to spiral down. And it leads to just sadness like T was saying, sadness, sorrow, deep sorrow, lack of empathy. And so as far as depression was concerned, it was just, for me, it was just like you put yourself in a state where you just can't get yourself to a better place. You can't get yourself happy. You can't appreciate things around you. You can't enjoy all the positives in your life because you're so focused on this negative aspect and you can't seem to figure out how to get yourself out of it. And so depression was always that to me. Like, you put yourself there, and then you can't get yourself out, and then you continue to just destroy everything around you because that's all you can focus on. I don't think I've ever experienced that. I've always been the type to either forgive and forget or just forget, and then, so it was like, if it was sad, I just forgot about it or just pretended it didn't exist, or just shift focus, adjust fire, don't let it influence me. Because for me, it was always having full control of my own mental faculties. Now, I wasn't a big fan of the diagnosis depression. I am a firm believer of nervous breakdowns. I am a firm believer of a lot of bad things happening at once, and then you just have a really, really, really bad moment. But as far as a prolonged thing, it was never, I know it exists. It was just something I couldn't fathom or grasp myself.
Last year, me personally, I was diagnosed with severe depression, but we'll go into that more in detail later on as we continue to talk. Right now, we'll go into the factors that are contributing to mental health problems. For an example, mental health problems like suicide, depression, anxiety. What kind of factors do you guys experience, or what you guys think contribute to this illness?
Well, I like to touch on that one. I think a lot of environmental factors, and there are some studies I've read that they've always pressed everything. You are a product of your environment. It's plain and simple. You never see a child that grew up in an Indian home, as in Asian Indian, all of a sudden manifest Zulu aspects. You are a product of your environment. And with that being said, your environment is the biggest contribution to anxiety, to stress, to depression, with what you're exposed to, with bullying, strict adherence, pressures of life, pressures to succeed, all those things. So it's like, I think key factor for what can cause mental health and mental illness is essentially stress from the environment, your environment.
Yeah, those are basically life experiences, right? They're the trauma and, things like abuse that we experience. Another factor can be biological factors, can be found in, your genes or brain chemistry. And I know, especially for women, they experience a lot of mood swings because of their hormones, right? Because men and women they're created differently. And another thing that can contribute to mental health problems is family history, right? If you have mental health in your family and it runs in your family, you can pass it on to your kids, basically. Another factor is those with serious health problems or are terminally ill. For an example, cancer, or those with diabetes or struggling with their weight. Those are factors that can contribute to these problems. Poverty, domestic and sexual violence, relationship problems, and especially nowadays we can add COVID to the list, right? I know right now American Samoa is on a 2-year lag. They're finally experiencing COVID. So this will be a major problem for them, not only health-wise, but mentally. COVID will have impact on them.
Oh, it's going to be a huge stress on the community. It was the fear, because usually the what do you call it? Those people that were the highly susceptible, the at risk, the high risk people. A large majority of our older Samoans fall in that category. So there's a lot to be worried about.
Yeah. And T, do you have any factors that you can think of?
I think you guys covered most of it, especially with speaking about environment. We all know about bullying, cyberbullying now too, really getting in there. But yeah, I've really seen bullying affect people, and it's sad seeing, especially the young kids, man. And they go and suffer through all this, and nobody really knows because they do it in silence, So I think it's important to really keep an eye on our people. I mean, especially you talking about how you were diagnosed, and I don't think any of us really knew unless you told us. But, that's something really, yeah. So, I mean, we should do a better job on checking on each other as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and why don't Samoans seek help for mental health problems, and how does this impact families and communities?
Pride. That's the biggest thing, pride. I believe that for some of the older generation, a lot of it has to do with, when you're stuck in your ways, you're set in your ways, they don't understand that this could be a thing. Like, what is depression? That's not a thing. And you just suck it up and move on. But the biggest thing I believe is just pride. We believe that we can handle it. We're strong, capable people, physically, mentally, and spiritually, very enthusiastic about all three. And that when it does happen and you hit like this low, a lot of them don't really know, and they make excuses. Like if somebody else in the village has depression and God forbid they commit suicide, and then left the community wondering what happened or what they could have done, but nobody really called it mental health. It's just, oh, she just wanted to do this, or he just wanted to be this, or wanted to be that. But I think the biggest thing was just pride.
When you think about how the Samoan culture is structured, starting from the Matai system, in our families, starting from the fathers, information, it flows downward. And at a very young age, we're taught to listen to our elders, not to question them because we'll be considered fiapokos. We're not encouraged to express ourselves, especially individually. So that's also a factor that's contributing to this. And something also that comes to mind is fofo faleaitu, the maiaitu, the witchcraft, as you can, another term for it.
Hey, that thing's legit.
Yeah, it is legit. I've seen these things practice, and people nowadays they still do this, and the back door, right? This kind of practice gets in the way of Samoans trying to seek help. If you're having a panic attack or something, they'll call it maiaiku.
Yeah, superstition.
Superstition. You're being a demon enters you or something. Another reason why Samoans don't seek help is the language barrier. There are no Samoan words for mental health problems like depression. And then I've done a little bit of research, and I've come across these words that us Samoans can use to describe mental illnesses. The first word is whangongoa. Whangongoa is really sad. We can use it, the word really sad. Whangongoa, the word mafatia le mafaufau. It basically means heavy on the mind. And the next word is popolinga, worry or anxiety. So these are words that we can incorporate into the Samoan vocabulary, especially for today's generation. We can incorporate it so that we can start using, because every illness or every sickness or anything that pertains to health, we use the word mai, right? We use the word mai. If a woman's pregnant, she's mai, right? If you have like diabetes or a serious health problem, they just use the word might, nothing to describe specifically what the health condition is. Do you have anything else to add, Johnny?
I know I'm probably going to be unpopular for this one, but I think that the existence of mental health in the person is prevalent. It's there. It's a thing. It's real. Attention seeking, utilizing or self-diagnosis, or just using it as an excuse. A lot of times people find themselves in a hole by their own doing, and to cover up or to save face, a lot of them will use whatever excuse they can find. And mental health and depression has fallen in that category. But a lot of it is just, it's hard to take it seriously until it gets serious, is what I'm trying to say. But it's become more of like, for example, when you're having these feelings, when you're having doubt in yourself and stuff like that, but then you see somebody commit suicide. And it's pretty sad to see or hear it happens, but then there's an outpouring of love and attention that shows up. And then it gets you feeling like, well, maybe I kind of want that too, kind of a big bang type of thing. It's kind of like what happens when there's a crime committed. There's a lot of copycat crimes that occur after, as soon as somebody knows that you can do it like that. And then next thing you know, another person is trying the exact same thing, and another person, and it kind of gets into like a trend thing. So it's a social thing. So it's hard for me to fully accept mental health as a whole, as a generalized thing, because a lot of times when it is mental health, it's misdiagnosed or it's missed, overlooked. And a lot of times when it's the loudest person that says mental health, it's usually just them trying to seek attention, especially with the way social media is right now. The access and the vying for attention, for likes, for recognition from strangers. And so I was always a little bit two-part on mental health. And it's sad to say that sometimes I think like people make stuff up because they like the sympathy, attention. They like people like, aw, and sounds kind of harsh, but it's kind of, to me, that's reality. And it's hard to take it serious sometimes until it's too late. And then I believe that becomes an obstacle that gets in the way, and it fuzzes the lives, blurs it. So I don't know. A lot of people are not going to like me for that one.
We have to be careful saying that, because there are real serious cases, especially with depression and suicide.
Yeah, and I understand that. And see, that's the problem, is that when too many people use that, the glory seeking, it tends to overlook those who actually need the help. Because then it's kind of like the boy cried wolf. If this person keeps saying, I have depression, I'm not sorry, Michael, this is nothing pertaining to you with your own diagnosis. But, if somebody, we all know a person that keeps messing up, and they do it to themselves. They keep messing up on their own accord. And then they use an illness just as a crutch to excuse the fact that they did this or that or this or that. Oh, it's just because of this and this and that. And they keep doing it over and over, and they ruin their own credibility, that it just ruins the community as a whole. And that's become my problem with mental health, is especially with depression. And there's been too many instances where people do stupid things, and then they say it's because I was depressed. That doesn't excuse the fact that you did it. Like I said, it's still a thing. I believe that depression is a thing. Postpartum depression is a huge, huge issue with women, even adolescent depression, peer pressure depression. And I've seen that in my own child with an issue that happened with her life. And the depression can be there. But at the same time, it turned into a thing where some people were glory seeking. Yeah. And that's what I never liked about it.
This factor, I know that in the Samoan culture, especially in the Polynesian community, mental illness is basically taboo, right? The Samoan word for taboo is tapu. And we don't talk about mental illness in our homes, especially in a Samoan household. This could apply in other cultures that are similar to us, like the Chinese culture or other Pacific Islanders. We don't talk a bit about it because of shame. We don't talk about it because we're afraid to be neglected. We don't talk about it because a lot of us are in denial that we have a problem, right? So the right word for it is stigma. This stigma towards seeking help and addressing your mental health will always be there. We have to try to break that stigma. We have to bring awareness that it's okay to seek help if you have a serious problem, a mental health problem, right? I know it's seen as a weakness, brings to many family dishonor. I know when I first started, I felt guilty bringing my depression up because last year my depression started getting in the way of me doing daily chores or working, family, school. My depression was to the point where it was like I couldn't do anything at all. So I started seeking help by contacting the VA, and they assigned a psychologist, a therapist for me, and we just started talking. The first stage is admitting that you need help and addressing that you have this problem and you need to fix it. We have to accept that we have a problem. It's just like you for an example,
Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah, like alcohol, or you have an illness, a heart problem, or
First step to recovery is acceptance.
Yeah, you accept and then you go get the help. Another factor is health issues. We have, especially minorities, problems trying to get health care. Not everyone can afford the health care to seek the help that we need. Just getting an appointment with a therapist is expensive, especially, if you're suffering from obesity, diabetes, cancer. These are health problems, and, it's hard for us as a people, especially Pacific Islanders, to go get the help that we need to improve our health. My next question is, should we get help starting from our kids?
Should we get help for our kids?
Yeah, when you see signs of mental illness.
I think we should. Should we run to a therapist first? No. My thing is, I'm a big fan of therapy. Yes, therapists are doctors and stuff like that, and they've gone to extensive amount of schools to diagnose certain mental illnesses. But if I start seeing mental health issues within my own family, should it be run to a therapist immediately? No. Sometimes oftentimes the main cause of stressors is the parent, you, me. A lot of times the stress could be from, expectations. We're pushing our kids too hard. Maybe they want to do something and you would disagree and you say like, no, you can't do that. I want to go hang out with a friend. No, don't hang out with those kids. Or, stuff like that. And maybe should you run to, because now they're all sad, should you run to a therapist then, just so they can tell you that you're the problem? No. Sometimes you need to look beside yourself and recognize that maybe it's you're the stressor and you need to change yourself before. And I say that because it's happening with my own kids. As one of my daughters transitions as a teenager, it becomes more complicated. And sometimes, when she's like, I'm always sad, you start seeing a dip in the grades, you start seeing different, like the way they act is changing, a little bit more defensive or less likely to hang out with the family, stuff like that. And then should I run to a therapist then? Maybe you should look everything, exhaust all of your options within yourself first, within your own household, before you move on to outside influences.
Yeah, I think it's great that we got, all these diagnoses and new medicine and new studies available, and the accessibility of therapists and all the different type of ifs there are. But like Johnny was saying, I think after we exhaust everything, and we assess ourselves as parents first. Like, are we doing everything we can, in all these different areas with our children to make sure, that it's not us. Because just not even dealing with mental health now, but just little things that my kids do or don't do. I think about, like, man, why don't they like normal kids? And I'm like, oh wait, that's because I haven't been doing my part, or I know my wife is lacking in certain areas. I mean, it's good that we got these terminologies and stuff, but at the same time, like, it's very important that the parents are honest with themselves first before going. That's why it's called seeking help, and then not just throwing your kid out to a therapist just for easy money for them. Because I mean, not everybody's ethical and is going to tell you nothing's wrong with your kid. They're going to want that money too. But yeah, I feel a lot along the same lines as Johnny.
Yeah, and it's very important as parents to understand if our kids don't listen to us, it's not a reason to have them go see the therapist because they're not listening to you. That's their freedom of expression, right? They can do, as individuals, they do what they want. That your kid's not listening to you is not a mental health problem. So don't be sending your kids to see therapists because they're not they're not basically listening to you. So what do you guys think of adults getting help?
Yeah, adults getting help. Yes, adults need to get help a lot. We especially a lot of us veterans, we have too many screws loose. We need to get those things tightened up. But yes, adults need to get help. And sometimes that help could be the significant other. Sometimes that help could be the friend. The first thing, especially for us men, a lot of us Samoan men, we have a lot of pride that we can handle it ourselves. We don't acknowledge the fact that we have a problem to begin with. And when you try to shoulder the burden and then it gets too heavy and you crumble and you collapse, and you make excuses for yourself, it just continues to put you in a detriment state. You don't need that. I myself have found myself in plenty of ruts that I had to dig myself out of while trying to maintain my family cohesiveness, So I believe that we all need help. And a lot of us, the easiest help would be to, go through your friends or find somebody you trust, a brother, a father, an uncle, a best friend, a group of knuckleheads, Piapocos, have a chat with them and put your concerns out in the open. As we bottle a lot of things, and we all know what happens when you bottle it, and then that bottle can't hold it anymore, and it all comes out at once. It makes it 10 times worse than what it should have been. In hindsight, you always want to go, well, I should have. Better just lay it out in the open. Not all of it. Sometimes there's some things you just got to keep to yourself. You know what I mean? But for the majority of the stuff, yeah, lay it out in the open and find somebody that's willing to talk to you about it. For me, it's always been my wife. Even though we argue, nip at each other's heels every day, the last 12 years. But at the same time, when it matters, we sit down and we talk about it, put stuff out in the open, and we acknowledge certain things. It helps out in the long run.
Yeah, and it's very important to understand that seeking help, especially going to see a therapist or a counselor, it's okay. It's not a bad thing. They're not there to criticize you. They're there to help you. Especially for us Samoans, we have a hard time talking, right? We cannot express our feelings. We cannot put our feelings into words, right? I admit that I see counselors, one counselor, and through the VA, and he's helped me. I'm grateful for his help in helping me go through what I'm going through, right? Especially with depression, because these counselors, they know what they're doing, and sometimes it's hard to talk to friends. It's hard to talk to your spouses or your parents. We have to normalize seeking help from those who are trained to help us So if you are need help, please seek assistance. Do it for yourself. Do it for your family. Do it for your loved ones, because no one wants to miss you, right? So follow us on the next episode. Follow, like, and subscribe us for the second part of mental health awareness. Catch you later.